Welcome to Darin Batchelder's Real Estate Investing Show. Each week, you will learn how to grow your wealth through real estate investing. Be introduced to the players that are getting it done and learn how you can get involved. And now, here's your host, Darin Batchelder.
Hello, everyone. Today we have a very special guest. We've got Vanessa Peters here with us today. Vanessa, appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Darin. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So just a little bit on how we know each other. Vanessa and I are actually general partners together on a deal with Dustin Miles and Hayden Harrington called the Henry at Liberty Hills in the Houston area. And we've been a part of different general partnership kind of Zoom calls, but this is the first time that we're just speaking one-on-one. So I'm interested in hearing about her background and, the value that she can bring to the table. So with that, how many properties and how many units are you currently invested in?
Well, that's definitely a moving target. Since I guess I'm invested personally in over 3,500 units. And wow. But I don't really, it's hard to quantify that way because I don't own 100% of those properties. But, right. I'm personally either a co-GP or an LP in about 44 investments currently. And those are most majority of them are multifamily properties.
Fantastic. Well, you at one point I've read on that you're in a lot of different asset classes. So you said mostly multifamily. What are some of the other asset classes that you also have invested in?
Yeah, I'd love to diversify. So I'm in self-storage, mobile home parks, land and land entitlement. I do own a couple of short-term rentals as well. And that's about it for real estate. Well, I shouldn't say that. Let me think. Hospitality and skilled like assisted living facility.
That's a lot. That's a lot. So how long have you been doing this?
Well, I've been investing in real estate since 2008. Like first rental property was in 2008. But I really didn't get into it in a big way until 2018.
So why do you say that? So what the first 10 years?
Well, the first property that I bought in 2008 was a one-off. I didn't know what I was doing. A realtor friend of mine said, you know what? Okay, so I live in San Diego. Okay. I'm a physician, and I have a realtor friend at the time. And he said, this was right after the crash, right at the beginning of 2008. And he said, you know what? Riverside County in Inland Empire is going to go crazy. You should buy a house there, because I had a little extra capital. And so that's just the county just north of San Diego County. And so I was like, okay, I'll try that. And so I bought a short sale. A very newish house, big house, like 4 bedrooms, and so that was all I did though, because it scared me a bit because the values kept going down for like another 2 years, and I was like, I don't know if I did the right thing, and so not knowing that much about real estate, I didn't pursue it and purchase 10 more like I wish I had, or 20 more.
Right, hindsight, right? Hindsight 2020. Yeah.
So I just kind of set it aside. I'm like, okay, it's cash flowing. Good renters, I'm just going to set it and forget it, and got busy with life and kind of, realized about 10 years later that, oh my gosh, that was an amazing investment. I want to do that again. And that, I couldn't do it the same thing at that point in time, 2018, in San Diego or Riverside County, anywhere, nothing was really cash flowing. So I had to look elsewhere for investments.
So we'll talk about that. I mean, you were scared for a couple years and you kind of questioned whether you did the right thing. Later on, you were like, I wish I had done more of this. But, there's listeners out there, and I know that you come in contact with this also. There's people that want to get involved with real estate, but they're scared. They've never done it before. And, it's typically a larger investment than just buying some stock, so how do you get other people comfortable with getting in the game?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I put $40,000 down on that house, that was a lot for me at the time, right. And it was kind of a big deal. I was there was definitely some sticker shock with closing costs and all this other stuff. And it was a little bit of a leap of faith. And so at that time I was, this was early in the internet age, and there wasn't as many resources available as there are now. But now, I mean, there's so much out there that you can read about and how to invest in real estate that in a way that works for you. So, buying single family homes might not be what you want to do. There's some risk involved. For example, when I realized I wanted to get back into real estate, I thought I would replicate what I did before because it worked so well. And doing a ton of research, getting a realtor, combing our area, realizing that nothing was going to work, I just was like, okay, well, I still want to invest in real estate, so how can I? And finding out what other California investors were doing, going to meetups, was investing in real estate out of state and buying homes, just like the one I did, except out of state, in a cheaper market, and buying duplexes or buying, small multis, that kind of thing. And I got to be honest, that scared the bejesus out of me because, owning a house across the country in, I don't know, like Tennessee or something like that, where I don't know anybody. I don't know from one block to the next what the neighborhood is like. Putting all of my trust in a property manager that I also don't know, I was like, I don't feel like doing that. Also, the returns were pretty okay, but not enough to move the needle enough for me to put those types of chips on the table. And so it really depends on your comfort level, how active you want to be. And if you want to invest, passively, then, like I kept looking and I found syndications. And when I found out about multifamily syndications in particular, talked to some people who were knowledgeable in the business, and they explained some deals to me, showed me some deals, and I was like, oh, wow, this is really cool. Okay, this is something I can wrap my head around because I don't have liability, I'm passive. It makes great returns. It's scalable. I can put in as much capital as I have. It doesn't add anything to my time. Whereas my thinking is every time I add more single family homes to my portfolio, that's more time that I have to spend. More insurances. I have to make sure I've got all these things checked off. And I mean, just from owning one house, I had a feel for it, and more asset protection and things like that. So it really depends on what you're looking for in terms of the type of investment of your sweat equity or your time. And it is a chunk of change to put down, but if you're working with people that you trust, getting reference from, like a warm handoff from a friend, someone who's already done it, that's really the best way to go about it, in my opinion. And also someone who's already vetted the deal, who knows more than you do. I did it all on my own. I didn't know anybody else who had done this. It was very foreign to anybody I talked to, and so honestly, I didn't tell anybody because they probably would have tried to talk me out of it.
Right.
I told my husband.
And if it went bad, you could just be quiet about it, right? Like you wouldn't have to tell everybody that you lost all this money.
Exactly. So I told my husband, I'm hopping on a plane to Dallas. I'm going to go visit this building, and I'm going to invest. And he's like, "What are you talking about? Really?" I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. So for my first investment, to make sure I was comfortable, I did do background criminal checks and did a site walkthrough of the building to make sure that it was real and that it wasn't a scam.
Right.
Being a physician, we're targets for scams. Even though I sought this one out myself. But once I did all those things, got a gut check on all the people, property manager and the operator, and I was like, okay, this is good. I'm gonna give it a try. And the first 50K is the hardest, 100%. You just, wiring that first 50K, you're just like, oh my God, I hope this works. And then just like anything, desensitization therapy, as we call it, is the more you do it, the less anxiety provoking these things are.
Man, so I could relate so much. I mean, I remember the first syndication I did and I think it was a 75K investment, and I wired that money, and I was like, I emailed the sponsor, no response. Text message, no response. I'm like, oh man, did I just wire this to Never Never Land? And it was somebody that, like you said, I had done my due diligence. Like I had talked to people that had referred me to, like I knew them personally. They had a great reputation. It was in a growing market. All the right things, but still, once you hit that, wire button on that first deal, it's like, holy cow. And then after that, now I can, get a deal and I'm interested in and wire funds and I don't even think about it. Like it's, but I think the big difference too is once you see the returns come back, you know, like it wasn't in the first 2 years with your single family house. It was later on when all of a sudden you saw the appreciation and, you know, that you were like, holy cow, I just own this and I'm making all this money. You know, with the syndications, you know, putting in 50 grand or 100 grand and then all of a sudden it doubling in 2, 3, 4 years, you're like, I wasn't seeing that in the stock market, you know? And so all of a sudden you get that confidence level. Not to say that every deal is gonna be a home run, but you know, you're buying hard assets, you know, and I don't know. Let me ask you that. Like I asked somebody that you're invested in 44 deals. I asked somebody that's invested in 40 or 50 deals. Have you ever lost money in a syndication? Have you?
Yes.
You have.
I have. Mm-hmm.
Your original capital, all of it?
Well, it's ongoing, but I believe so.
That stinks.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
And I don't mind talking about it because it's a learning opportunity, right?
Yeah. So, well, what could you have done differently?
Yeah. So, a couple things. I think what happened is 2 years ago in the summer of 2020, I did a transfer of money from a defined benefit plan to a self-directed 401k. So I had some money to play with. And I was a little excited about that, to have my hands on this $500,000 or whatever. And for me, that was a lot of money, and I wanted to invest it. So I was part of an investing group. And when the deals popped up, if they looked good, I invested. I feel like I was a little rushed. And so much so, like you talked about how you wire 50 or 100 grand and don't even think about it. I actually lost track of some of the paperwork because I was doing so many wires in like a 2-week period. I had a little mini heart attack a couple months later when I was like,
what the heck did I do?
I haven't accounted for 50 grand and where did it go? And I because sometimes when you invest in a deal, it has a certain name, right? And then when you wire, it's to the legal
whatever the LLC
escrow company
is,
or
right.
whatever. And it's not the same. And like I said, I felt a little anxious because I wasn't sure how to line it up. I eventually did. But during that time period, I actually did 2 investments that haven't worked out. And I can point the finger at other people, but ultimately it was my choice to do the investment. And I feel like I got a little bit swept up in the group. And so while I just said, hey, invest with people you trust and invest with, you know, people who've done other due diligence, you can't just rely on other people to do all the due diligence for you and just take it at face value that this is a good deal. So I invested in one opportunity that was a hotel conversion, like a Hilton hotel conversion. And basically, I put 100 in to be transparent, and the deal has never closed.
The deal has never closed?
Right. And so, you know, for a few months, it's like, okay, but, you know, it was in the middle of COVID. And that was part of the pitch was that, you know, we're going to reposition this hotel. We're going to sell it off in like 3 years. You're going to make 30% returns. Number one, those returns are high. And if you're getting those kind of projections, that should have instilled more caution in me than it did. Okay. And then number two, I didn't do a lot of due diligence on this operator. I might have turned up some nasty stuff if I had. And number three, I was just kind of going on the advice of this group I was in. You know, they had an advisor and they gave me advice and I just took it. After about a year, it still hadn't closed. And I kept, you know, every so often I would ping them and I'd be like, what's going on? And they'd say, oh, you know, this and that, escrow, seller, COVID, excuses, basically. And then in September of 2021, I sat down at my computer one night and I just typed in the operator's name. And this whole flood of hits was about fraud.
Oh no, really?
And yeah. And so this was fraud, and it is fraud. And so I don't expect to see my money back. I am going to the FBI, and I'm collecting information about it right now so that I can take it to them. Not that they don't know about this guy already, but,
Sure.
just to make sure that it doesn't happen to other people. The kicker is that it's in a 401k. And so I don't even get to write it off as a theft casualty loss, which you can do if you are ever scammed. You can write it off if it's in cash. So, but I feel like, it's a responsibility that I have to try and make sure that this person is brought to justice for what they're doing. And I'm actually working with a private detective who has traced back the ownership of this hotel and found out that it's still in the same family ownership that it's been in for many years. And it was never even for sale.
Oh,
so it's like that kind of a
holy
scam,
cow,
right?
Really? So now you go back to the group. I mean, the group is the one that advised on this. Like, now, don't they lose all their reputation, the group and the advisor? Because
I left.
You're
the
not
group,
the only
yeah.
one that gets hurt, right? There's other people that they were, sending that way too. So did they just make a bad call?
Yes. They didn't have the parameters of due diligence in place that they have improved over time. I left that group before I found out that this was, a scam. But I've gone back to them and advised them of what I found. And basically, I'm the one who found the problem. And they're like, "Oh my God,"
That's
nobody else had done any kind of check
scary. And I
guys.
wasn't expecting that response, because the other guy that I asked that was in like 40 or 50 deals, he's like, "Darin, I've never lost on a syndication. My capital. I've had deals where the projections were off. Like they say,
Right.
The cash flow was going to be 8% and I got 2%, or I didn't get anything. And then until, or they said it was going to be a 5-year deal and it turned out to be a 7-year deal, but or they were going to double my money and I didn't double my money, but I got back, some kind of gain. And so this is I'm shocked that happened. And it opens our eyes that, like, look, I'll have people contact me off Instagram and they're like, "Hey, Darin, do you want to partner on a deal?" And I'm like, "I don't even know you. Like, how am I gonna, and not only am I gonna invest, but like, how am I gonna bring investors to that deal when I don't even know you?" Like, I'm like, next time you're in Dallas, like, let's get together for coffee. And like, the people that I'm investing with, I typically know for several years, before I even, move forward with. And, you hear, and that's another benefit of going to meetups and networking. And, you hear people's reputations from other people, and that builds confidence. And, wow.
Yes. So as a learning experience, I have chosen to only partner on deals with people that I know very well, or have a close friend who has worked with them already, and really have just limited my network of operators to a very small number for my investors' investments. For my own, of course, I branch out on my own and do things that I might be considered a little more risky, but overall, I'm very limited in who I partner with, for that reason. But I also tell investors that the only way to really lose your capital in a syndication is what happened to me. Yeah, I mean, otherwise, like you said, it's all those other things. It doesn't perform as well. It doesn't quite hit the performance, but you've got a tangible asset. It's not going to just poof disappear. Right. Compare that to the stock market. Your stuff can poof disappear. And that's not fraud. That's perfectly legal.
What's weird is the difference, I think the difference between, like, I had, somebody call me and say, "Hey, Darin, man, I lost $1 million in the stock market in the last several months, whatever." He doesn't put blame on like a person, right? But if he was to invest in a syndication, whoever brought him that deal is going to be the face of that, right? Mm-hmm. It's so different, between, the stock market, I just lost, $1 million in the stock market, versus that guy took my money,
right.
So for me, I would say that, and now I've got another business that trades loans between banks. I've been in that business since like 2002. I do think that there is just personally from my standpoint, I think there is one other risk in these multifamily deals or real estate deals, besides fraud, is the reset risk, like on the loan. And a lot of people don't bring it up, but I'm just super hypersensitive to it, because in that 2008 to 2010 timeframe, I was talking to a lot of bank presidents and chief lending officers, and the deals that went bad were the ones that, like, cash flow's down, cap rates are up, valuations are down, and the loan comes for, due. It's a balloon, and nobody wants to lend. And, either the owner, the syndicator, whoever is the lead on the deal, it's impossible to raise capital at that time. Nobody wants to, everybody's scared, so holding everything they have. So at that point in time, there's risk that the deal could be taken by the lender. And I'm a big believer that if you have enough running room, then, rents, real estate will come back, but everything is cyclical.
If it's cash
flowing,
right,
so it's a matter of being able to withstand that downturn and then come out the other side.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what people are talking about it now, with interest rates going up.
People are talking about,
absolutely.
I've talked to a number of syndicators that are like, I'm looking for some of those deals that were bridge loans maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and they're coming due soon. Interest rates are, double what they were. And, is the deal going to pencil, and are they going to be able to refinance, or is that going to be an opportunity for us to pick it up?
Right.
So I haven't seen any of those deals. I've heard from brokers and from syndicators that it's getting tougher, and those deals are coming, but I haven't seen any. Have you heard and seen any of those deals come to market yet?
No, I think it's a little early yet, but I think that the time will tell in the next 6 months.
So you are a physician. So do you still practice? You do?
I do. I'm here in the office
So
right now.
what type of physician are you?
I'm a family physician, and I'm also the chief medical officer for the group as well. So it's like a leadership role, like the administrative side.
So in this space, the space that we play in, multifamily, like, building know, like, and trust is a big thing. Well, being a physician, like, you have to do that right from the get-go, like build trust that you know what you're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of took that and parlayed that into the real estate world. So where's your focus on the real estate world?
Well, it started out that I was looking for my own personal investments. And so, when I had this realization in 2018, I had been basically plotting my net worth over the last 8 years. And it was definitely going up, but it was going up because I was saving almost half of my income. And I had it all in the stock market, just like I was told to do, and in savings. And so when I did a graph and I saw this really very straight line, it was going up. It was in a a bull market. Things were improving, but it wasn't at all exponential. And I really thought, after saving for 8 years, half my income, putting it in investments, not just sitting under my mattress, that it would have gone more like a curve upward, and that was my wake-up call. Was like, what? I'm 40 now. What am I going to do? If I keep on this trajectory, I'm going to be working until my mid-60s or later to really reach that kind of freedom number that I was kind of looking for. And so that's when I realized I needed to switch gears and look for asymmetric risk reward, meaning low risk and high reward. And I knew that was real estate because, like everybody else, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, but I read it back in 2002 when I just got out of residency. Was coming down here to the States. I came from Canada originally, came down here to work. And, I read it and I got it. But at the same time, it was like, I can't focus on that right now. I'm starting a new career. I just got out of medical training, and I have a large amount of debt, and I can't just pivot and start investing in real estate. So, that kind of like was in the back of my mind. That's what I need to do. And so, like I told you, I went through all these iterations to try and figure out where to invest. And once I started investing as a limited partner, I started getting those checks in the mail. I was completely hooked. So I was like, this is it. And I invested in a bunch of things, like six different things in 6 months. And then, as is my personality, I tend to get sort of obsessive about things and just really dive in. And one of the operators I was working with was running a coaching program. And so he said, you know what, we're looking for people who want to do this as for kind of fun. And I thought, you know what, I always felt like I'd be in real estate if I wasn't in medicine. That would be kind of my thing that I enjoyed the most. And I thought this was a way that I could be a little bit active and also, spread this word, because I couldn't stop talking about how great this stuff was to anybody who would listen. And so I started raising capital on some nice deals and just bringing in friends and family. And really the goal, though, for me was and still is to invest in every deal. So that's why I have 44 syndication investments in my personal portfolio, because I closely track my passive income. I have a spreadsheet that says, okay, this deal is going to give me this much income. And so while I'm not completely focused on cash flow, I've actually been very heavily focused on equity. I've pivoted also to looking at cash flow so that I can work towards that number, which would replace my active income. And whatever method to get me there might include, I've learned a lot about debt and how debt will get you to your passive number a lot quicker than equity will. But I like to see a balance of those things in my portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, the same experience happened with me that happened with you. It's like initially, and I think it's probably with a lot of people, like initially you're looking for yourself, and your family. How do I build wealth? How do I put us in a position to be able to, be comfortable later in life? And, but you don't realize that there's like a ripple effect. Once you start learning how to do it, one, if you've got the bug, you want to tell other people. And then two, other people see that you're successful and then they want to learn. So you don't even realize it in the beginning, but anybody that's taken their first investment, like initially it's just about you, but 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road, now you're teaching, your brother and your aunt and your uncle and your parents, and like there's all your network, and it just is exponential how many people you can help. So I think it's awesome that you look, you're a physician. You guys are like bred that way to help other people. I mean, you're right. And so now you're not only doing it in the health field, but you're also doing it in the financial field.
Yeah. And, helping other busy professionals, that's my, soft spot, is for other people like me who are working our buns off every day, helping other people and patients and making good money, but also paying a ton of taxes, especially where I am in California. And just really not just on that treadmill of like, buy a big house and get a big deduction and go to private school for your kids. It's just, all these expenses, so that then they feel like they're kind of drowning, and also very much golden handcuffed to their high paying job because they can't stop. They have way too many expenses.
Most of the investors, or a large percentage, other physicians?
I would say yes. I'm in a lot of different networks, though, that are not physicians. So I would say maybe 40% of my investors are physicians, but then they refer me their family members who are in, business or in tech or, whatever. But many of them are working professionals, high W-2 accredited investors.
I've had a few physicians that have been on that are kind of in that capital raising role, and what they've described to me is that doctors they read a lot, but they're focused on reading stuff that's going to help them in the medical field. And so a lot of them don't want to dedicate time to learning about real estate and other financial investments. They want to spend their time on their field of practice. And so a lot of them are on that hamster wheel because of that. So
Right, and they might have an an idea that it's a good idea, but they don't know enough about it, and they don't have any inclination to learn more, which is where someone like myself comes in and be like, hey, I can educate you. You can read my book. You can learn about it in a very quick fashion, and then I can present you deals that are vetted by me and I'm investing in as well, so that you don't have to do a whole ton of legwork and find someone online that you trust to give
absolutely.
your money
So
to.
you mentioned that you wrote a book. Tell us about the book. Like, what's the name of it? What's it geared towards? You got a copy?
Sure.
Show it to us. All right.
I got a copy. Yeah. So here we go. The Busy Professional's Guide to Passive Real Estate Investing, a physician's path to building wealth, creating financial freedom, and leaving a legacy. So this is not a big book. Pretty short, and I wrote it so that you could probably finish it on a flight, 3 hours maybe, and it's a basic primer on syndication. So for those of you out there who know a lot about syndication, it's probably not that helpful. I do dive into my story a little bit about how I got to where I am and some of the pitfalls that I've had and run into, go into a few different asset classes, but it's really nice too for folks that are new to it, for me to have them read that, and then we can chat in more depth about things.
Where can people find that book?
Oh, it's on Amazon. You can buy it in paperback and also
fantastic.
on Audible.
That's just another thing. When you started investing, did you ever think you were going to write a book about investing? I mean, right. I mean, that's
Heck
the thing is like, in the beginning, it's just about building your own wealth. And like people that are listening right now that haven't purchased their first investment, you're just thinking about, how do I get that first investment? But I'm telling you, like a year, 2, 3 years down the road, you're going to be looking for ways how you can help other people. And Vanessa took the time to write a book to help other people. That's awesome. So before we hit record, we were talking, and a phrase that was very strong to you is financial freedom. So what does that mean to you and, mean to other people?
Yeah, I know that, you can focus on the numbers, and being a person who likes numbers, it's easy to do that, to be like, I need X amount of dollars to quote unquote retire, or X amount of cash flow to, retire or leave my full-time job. And I do enjoy tracking that. However, my perspective is more focused now on cash flow than that net worth pile of money, because the old school thinking is that you save several $1,000,000 or more, depending on the lifestyle that you want, and then you stop working and then you spend it down, and then you die. So, you might have a little bit to leave to your family, but, probably not. And the opposite of that is building up a bunch of assets that provide cash flow. So you transition from earning money to living off the cash flow from your investments, which continue to appreciate in value. So in essence, your net value keeps going up, even though you're not even trying anymore. You're just managing your own investments. And we've all heard of the cash flow quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. And that lower right corner is the investor corner. And that's where I ultimately would like to be. It's just someone who full-time manages my own investments and have philanthropy and a legacy to leave for my family and for other people. And so, but freedom, while I'm still around, what it really means is not about a dollar number in the bank, but it's about being able to have freedom of time and freedom to do the things that I want, when I want, with the people that I want. I think there's a Tony Robbins quote that's similar to that, So it was like when I want, where I want, with whom I want, whenever I want, so that's freedom. I'm not there, it's hard for me. There's only 24 hours in a day, and I like a lot of the things that I do, and so, but those things require time commitments. And so while I like medicine, do I like doing it 40 hours a week? Well, not necessarily, I'd like to have some more freedom. And I feel like going back to the numbers, when you get to a certain number, you can say, okay, I'm going to work part-time, and I get to keep doing what I love, but then I get to also do other things that aren't medicine related.
That's a big mindset shift, like what you said. I mean, I think most of us are taught that just build up to that pile of money, right? And then I'm a big reader of books, and I was reading one book, and it's like nobody wants that number to go down. So even like when you start to pull from it, like retirees, like they don't like to see that number go down. So they live extremely frugal because they're fearful that they're going to be taking out too much, and they don't like seeing it go down. So the other mindset of looking at the cash flow, like you said, even if you're not trying, the assets are appreciating. And I think it's a completely different way of looking at things. And so I was always the guy that would save up money and pay for a car with cash. And that's kind of, what I thought was the right thing to do. And then I talked to other real estate people, and they're like, well, one, you could get a tax benefit if you're using it for, business purposes. And then two, like once you spent that money on that car, well, it's just going to depreciate. Versus if you had invested that and you get cash flow from that, and then you use that cash flow to buy a car, then you've got an asset that's appreciating, and you're still getting the car that you want. I'm like, that's a whole different way of looking at it, So, meeting other people that are wise, that's the other side benefit of doing this, is that you network with other people, and then you learn, well, how are you doing it? How are you getting the tax benefits? How are you, leveraging the capital that you have? And then you learn different things. And some things you may say, you know what, that's not for me. And other things you're like, holy cow, I didn't know I could do that. That's so smart. And it's just an education thing. So in any event, talk about mindset and how yours has changed as you've gone through kind of the investment world.
Oh, yeah, a ton. I mean, I actually went through a period of time during that 8 years where I was saving half of my money. And really what happened was when I was in my early 30s, I talked to my financial advisor at the time, and I said that I wanted to retire when I was 45. And he kind of chuckled a little bit, and he's like, how much money you're going to need? And I was like, I have no idea. And he said about $4 million at the time. That's what he said, including, inflation, 4% safe withdrawal rate, da-da-da. And so I was like, oh man, I'm going to have to work hard to get to that by 45, so I better get to work. And that's what I did. I worked hard. I saved a lot. And I got extremely frugal. Speaking of fear and frugality, I went a little bit overboard. I mentioned earlier that I get a little obsessed about things. So when I got obsessed with frugality, it was a sad time in our lives. I was at the library. I would read at Barnes and Noble, but I wouldn't buy. I would go to the library.
So even the $20 book that can make you way more money, like that was a big expense, right?
I would read it. While I was there, and take pictures. I'm serious. It was bad, and I was so frugal. I got caught up in the FIRE movement, the Financial Independence Retire Early movement, and thought that would probably be the way to go. So I bought books about, I borrowed books about how to live on, $100 a month on groceries, and how to. It's just kind of nuts. And I went through this period where we bought solar panels, and they weren't functioning as well as I thought they should in terms of our bill. And so I went around and measured the electricity of everything in our house with this little thing you can plug into your units, into your wall sockets, and then plug the appliance in. Like, this is how much the blender uses. Can you believe this?
Well,
this is
what
the
did
TV
what
does.
did your husband say when you go into this
Okay,
mode?
well, I'll get to that. I'll get to that. So I was tracking all the little blinking lights in our house that were on at night, and he's a musician. He's got a ton of gear. There's big computers, there's a studio thing, and it was driving me crazy. It was eating me alive. I started tracking our solar panels and how much they were producing, and I was, getting after him and my son about stuff. And one day he just turned around and he's like, you need to get some help. you have a problem. And I was like, what? And he was like, he literally canceled a weekend trip we had. I had to go away by myself. It was like a continuing medical education thing. And I went by myself and I cried and I was so sad and I was upset. And then I got some help. We got some therapy. And then I realized, okay, I was like way down this weird rabbit hole of stuff that was going to save me like $50 a month, maybe. You know, like we're not talking big dollars here. And, you know, it was like, I'm joking about it, but it was a sad time. You know, it was a tough time. And I needed to kind of like back away from that and just, you know, see the forest instead of the trees. Because I was really just focused on the minutia of, you know, and that goes back to the, you know, the financial guru who recommends the $5 latte thing. You know, it's like, Richard Bach, I think. So it's like, you know, if you don't buy that coffee, then you're going to get rich. No, that's not it at all. It's the big decisions that are going to make you rich, which is, you know, getting a low rate on your mortgage and, you know, not paying it off and using that money for something else and leveraging things and being smart about it instead of squirreling away small dollars to pay off things that, you know, really benefit you to not pay them off.
That's great. I mean, there's a lot of books on like the frugality and movements and don't have any debt at all and all that and pay off your mortgage and, you know, then you meet other people that you're like, well, how'd you grow your wealth? And then they tell you all the different ways and you're like, well, that makes sense. Like, why aren't more people doing it? You know, and it's, you know, getting out there. This is advice to people listening. Like, you heard Vanessa say it. You know, you've heard me say it before. You got to get out and meet other people. You know, you have to go to meetup groups. You have to go out and meet other people that are doing things that are, you know, learning from that and then taking action and actually see how it's changing their life. And when you see that, then it puts a little bit of a spark in you like, all right, they did it, I can do it, you know?
And another thing is that not just real estate people. So one really big turning point was that I found personal development. And, you know, sounds like a cult to outside people sometimes when you join a personal development group and get kind of involved in it. But I met so many cool people through this group that I joined. I met Hal Elrod's group, which is best year ever event, and I went to that, and it was a big deal for me to go because it was $500, and it was in my own backyard. I didn't even have to go anywhere. It's in San Diego, and I thought about it for 3 weeks before I put down the $500 to go to this 3-day event. I mean, it's insane, right? But when I got there, and I met all these other people that were doing cool things. They were outside of my field. They weren't doing real estate necessarily. A lot of them do, but not all. And they were not doing medicine. And it really expanded my horizons in an excellent way. And joining their mastermind. So again, join a mastermind. Be around people who are doing great things because you want to surround yourself with people who are ahead of you. And everybody there seemed like was writing a book, which is one of the reasons why I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. This is something that, and they showed me the path for how to get there. And we live in our little bubbles, you know, where we kind of have our group of friends and we have our work and we might have kids and those friends and we do our kind of thing every day. And it's very easy to get very comfortable with the people around us and not push our edges a little bit to where we might feel a bit uncomfortable. Like the first time I did a podcast like this, I was absolutely terrified. I had all my answers. I had my answers all written down on a piece of paper, and I was trying to read it, you know. And it's like it was scary. But that's how we grow, is by pushing those edges, because there's no way to grow otherwise.
I completely agree. Like, look, I'm a host of a podcast, and my kids would walk by, like when I was practicing, I had no idea what the heck I was doing, and they would be laughing at me, you know. And but I agree with you, like. So you brought up Hal Elrod. You know, I bought his book, The Miracle Morning, and I had it like for a while, and I was like, I don't even really want to read this. Like, I'm thinking it's going to be, you know, get up and make your bed in the morning, and you're going to feel better about yourself, and you know, like I thought that was going to be like one of those types of things. Well, I finally decided to read it, and I'm like, holy cow, like this is great. And then I got my wife, and so now we're only, I don't know, maybe we're 45 days in. It's a 30-day challenge, and we passed the 30 days. We're like 45 days.
Oh,
but
nice.
It's very, very cool because it's a bunch of different things that you could focus on. Like, you know, reading a book of the Bible every day. Well, some days I would do it and some days I wouldn't. But now this was like dedicated time for reading, dedicated time for, and so I would do it every day. Pushing past your boundaries. I was doing a podcast interview with another guy who he told me something crazy he had done. And I was like, after we hit stop on the recording, I was like, I really want to go on one of these motocross, like off backcountry, deals where I don't even really know anybody. I just go. And he's like, you got to do it. And I was like, oh man, now I'm like going to be held accountable. And talked to my wife, and 2 days later I booked it. So the end of September, I'm going to, where am I going? I'm going to Yosemite. I'm flying into California, and we're going to go through Yosemite. It's like a 3-day deal, and they take away your phone.
Nice.
And like you're just in the country riding motocross. And so I don't know, but like it's scary and exciting at the same time. But that's part of like what's great about life is when you have that both. Like you don't know how it's going to turn out,
Right. Another one of my favorite quotes is, you've got 2 dates and a dash. Make the most of the dash.
Day you're born.
So the year, the day you're born, the year you die, and there's that little dash in the middle, and that's your whole life. Make the most of it, So that's something that I've been living by as well, and doing things that I really never thought I would do because I thought they were too hard or too expensive or I was too old or they're too scary. And one of those was becoming a pilot. So that's like my passion that I just love, but didn't know
that
it
a pilot
was even
now?
possible for me to even consider.
You are?
doing
How
that
long
in
did it
my
take you to become a pilot?
Mm-hmm. So it took me 6 months to become a private pilot. See, I thought it would take years and cost millions of dollars, and I just thought it was impractical. I spoke with an investor who was a pilot, and I said, I've always kind of thought about doing that. Like I was almost scared to say it. And I'm like, but I'm probably too old and da-da-da. And he's like, no, you're not too old, and it won't take you that long, and here's how you do it. And he just gave me a quick little rundown. Go book an experience flight, and go to this school. I know this school, go there, and and I did, and I was like, this is really cool. I like this, and so I'm doing it, and is it scary? Well, yeah, it kind of is. It kind of is. But that's part of growth and growing as well.
Where do you fly?
I fly, mostly just locally here in San Diego. So once I get my instrument rating, which is going to be at the end of this month, which is where you can fly by reference to instruments, so you don't have to be able to see as much. You can go through clouds, mist, that kind of stuff. Then I'll be able to go further. I'd like to explore, the Southwest. And
that's so awesome.
So
listeners, like, it's not just about real estate investing. Like, you get around other people that push you to, what? We all have like this gut sense of what we want in life, like, what you want to try. And we let fear hold us back, and there's people that sometimes they go through their whole life and there are certain things they never tried and they have regret, and you don't want to have regret, that's fantastic. Hey, talk about, so you're on the capital raising side. How do you source deals?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I only have a very select number of operators that I work with. And so I don't really source deals. They ask me when they
how did you get to develop those relationships?
And so, just through networking and working. Like, so the original group that I was part of, you know, we were like a group that was being mentored or coached, started with those folks, and then we all kind of branched out to do our own things. So those are my kind of core connections. And so if they work with an operator and they're looking for new capital raisers, they'll refer me. And, you know, meeting other people through conferences, like I just went to the MFIN Con, and you were there as well. And, you know, we meet people through those types of things. But again, I'm very hesitant if I just met somebody to bring in investors. Unless they've got a high profile and I've known them.
The reality is that there are people, just like what happened with you, there are people in my network and your network that are busy people, high net worth individuals who have cash and, you know, want to invest and like the asset class, but they don't have time to vet the operators. They don't have time to vet the markets, you know, they don't have time to vet the deals and learn everything about it. So there's a bit of trust that you as the capital raiser are doing a lot of that due diligence for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes both ways. You know, I met a team member from that original group at MFIN, and we hadn't seen each other in years, and I was like, oh, great, cool. And then he had a deal, and he told me about it, and I was like, okay, great. I was not planning on investing $100K here this weekend, but here I am. You know, I'm like, I can't turn it down. This is a great deal. And I implicitly trust him because we've known each other for years.
So I'm going to go back in time. When you were a child, like, did you know that you were going to be a doctor? Did you know that you were going to be successful? Did you know that you were going to be working towards financial freedom?
Well, as a child, I was very studious. You know, I have to say that I was the kid who, you know, always got straight A's and was very, very focused on my
Was that
schooling.
Self-motivation or trying to make parents happy?
No, yeah, 100%. 100%. It was like it was like self-flagellation if I got a B, you know. It was like bawling and crying. No, and I just knew that I was smart enough to do something good in life, but I didn't have any entrepreneurs in my world at all. And I grew up in a small coal mining town where everybody was actually employed by the mine, you know. So my stepdad was a foreman at the mine, and everybody else worked for the mine somehow or supported it somehow. And I didn't really know anything about entrepreneurship or anything like that. I don't even think there was real estate entrepreneurship in that town because the mine literally gave people houses, right? And so my exposure to entrepreneurship came much, much later. So in approximately 10th grade, when it was like, oh gosh, I better figure out what I want to do with my life, I really thought, okay, well, I can be a lawyer or I can be a doctor. Because those are like the things that I hear about that people who do well in school do, right? And I was better at math than the other stuff, you know, like literature or writing and things. And I thought, you know, I think I would like science better. And so I thought being a doctor would be a cool thing to do. But literally, it was sort of almost an arbitrary decision. I also knew that I wanted to make good money because I thought that doctors made a ton of money. And I also thought that they would be their own boss. And so I didn't want to be beholden to a boss. And so I thought, I'm going to be my own boss, and I'm going to make a lot of money, and I'm going to be a doctor. So that's kind of where it came from. And did I want to help people?
That was
yes, but I can't say that was my primary motivation. It was more very practical. It was a very practical decision. The other big thing is that I wanted security, which goes against being an entrepreneur completely, but that I wanted a job. I wanted a flippin' job when I got out of school because I was paying for this myself. Did not have any financing from my parents. We were kind of we were just very middle class, lower middle class. And I said, well, if I'm going to do this all on my own, I don't want some Bachelor of Arts that doesn't get me a job and I'm working at the Starbucks. And so I wanted a job title when I got out.
Did you make good money and were you your own boss?
Initially, no and no. So, you know, the original salary of a doctor when you first start is actually not that much, especially in primary care. It's gotten a lot better, but yeah. And you're not your own boss at all. In Canada, where I'm from, I thought you would be your own boss, and you kind of are in terms of that, like you just hang out a shingle and you're, a single office. But the government is your boss up there. They pay you. And so then here, you're generally an employee and you join a group. There's very few docs that just kind of are their own bosses. And I'm really glad I didn't try to go down that route, because I didn't know a thing about running a practice or the business side of things.
That's crazy.
Do not learn that
you learn all the medical piece, but you don't learn the business part.
No, I think we got one day near the very, very end of our residency when we were practically checked out, Oh, by the way, here's how you start a practice.
So you're a doctor, you make good money.
8 hours.
You're surrounded by other people that make good money, but you get in real estate and you see that there's a different world. Like, to the listeners, say there's a listener out there that they have not invested. They read Rich Dad Poor Dad, or somebody told them they should invest in real estate, but there's just that skeptical side. Like, what do you tell them?
Well, I have people ask me, when I talk to them about an investment, they ask me, well, is it guaranteed or insured? Is there any government insurance on this? And I say, no, there's not. It's considered a private placement. It's its own category in the Securities and Exchange Commission rules, and there's no guarantee. And when you look at the private placement memorandum, you're going to see a whole bunch of bold print about how risky this is. But when you invest in really any of the paper assets except for the savings accounts up to a certain amount that are FDIC insured, nothing is insured or safe. And so, my personal feeling is that a tangible asset is safer than paper assets in the stock market, whereby they consider that anything that is risky will get you higher returns, and anything that is safer will get you lower returns, like your savings account, your money market account, stocks, mutual funds, bonds, and then up to junk bonds and options trading. Those are kind of like, okay, that's going to make you more money. It doesn't have to be that way. And it just takes a little bit of education and a little bit of learning and getting a good network together to do really well in real estate.
I completely agree with that. But now if somebody doesn't understand the differential, like, what are the returns? So, like, if you put your money in the bank, right, what are you making? 15 basis points, 25 basis points, 50 basis points, you're making definitely less than 1%, right? What's your experience in, say, syndications? The average annualized returns on... You look like you're looking at a spreadsheet right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was like, I'm not as prepared as I should be. I did just... kind of compile the returns of my investments so far, which includes 9 exits. And so I've been a general partner in, I think, 24 syndications, and I've had 9 exits. And so I was just compiling the returns, and I had a nice graphic that I, put away, and I can't find it right now. But basically the average hold time is like just under 30 months, and the average return IRR is over 30%. And so, I mean, that's pretty darn good. And as I'm sure your listeners know, IRR takes into account the time value of money. So it's 32% for the IRR, and so that's a damn good return.
Absolutely. And the thing is, with these deals, like, you have to get asked, like, you have to be on somebody's investor database list, like. Or you don't even get asked. I mean, I was until 4 years ago, I didn't even know how to get involved with private placements. Now my email box is flooded with them. So, yeah, exactly.
Overflowing, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. You're like, why didn't I hear about this? Why didn't my financial advisor tell me about these investments? Is the question that I had, and the question that people ask me. And it took me a while to figure it out, but I learned that financial advisors have their lane, and their lane is in their licensure usually. And some of them are able to give advice on private placements, but many of them aren't comfortable with it.
Yeah, and some of the words are just scary. Private placements, like, oh my gosh, that's like for other people. Syndications, it's a scary word until you just realize, hey, it's just a bunch of people coming together to buy an asset that's larger than you could buy on your own. I mean, so yeah, it's just a partnership, but it sounds like it's really complicated. But hey, you've done so much. What's the next big stretch goal?
Well, my next big thing, apart from continuing what I'm already doing, is I'm going to become an investment advisor representative. So it's an investment advisor, so a financial advisor, basically. So there's a securities exam that you can take called the Series 65, and that's a law exam. And when you take that exam, then you are eligible to become an investment advisor. And so I did take it a couple of years ago with the thoughts of maybe becoming a wealth advisor for physicians or something like that. I didn't do much with it. It sat on the sidelines, and just recently I've joined up with a company that I'll be working with. So
what's the benefit? What's the attraction to getting that? I'm trying to learn my own. Right.
I always like to learn, and although writing that law exam about the stock market, which was what it was primarily about, was not fun. It was a very difficult exam. I learned a lot from the retirement account side of it, but the whole options trading and all that and the legal jargon, I was like, thank God I'm not a lawyer, because this stuff is tough. I'd like to try providing, I feel like at this point, with all of the iterations of different advisors that I've gone through, the different masterminds I've been in for investing, I feel like I have a lot of knowledge. And so I feel like I could give back in that way to help other people kind of like structure their roadmap to financial wealth, where it's like, okay, I've already done all these things, and if I just rattle them off to you, they'll completely overwhelm you. But there is a stepwise process that you can go through. And to be official in terms of having that license allows you to actually give advice without getting into hot water.
Right, absolutely. So outside of work, what do you like to do? I know you like to fly. What else?
Yes, I do. We, as a family, we love to go traveling, go to the beach, and go hiking. We've got a beautiful country down here in Southern California. And we have
awesome
camper van, go road trips and things like that.
So camper van. So my wife and I bought an RV and we're traveling around. And so where's the furthest you got? Do you stay in California?
No. Well, typically we go up as far as, say, like Yosemite or Utah for me, but my husband and son made it all the way to the eclipse in Oregon a couple of years ago. So that's really far.
I really appreciate you coming on. I look forward to doing more deals as partners with you. I know that you're a class act and that you're out to help other people. What's the best way for people to get to know you a little bit better?
So you can go to my website. It's vmdinvesting.com. And there's a link to my calendar there. And you can also just email me directly at Vanessa at
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed that one. Until next week, signing off.
Thank you for watching Darin Batchelder's Real Estate Investing Show. If you liked the episode, please click the like button and subscribe to the show. If you already are subscribed, then thank you. And please share the show with a friend. Check out other free resources at darinbatchelder.com/learn.